mission accomplished for the mainstream media and the people that are running the show. They've had us focused on stupid frickin' balloons over the past week. I get 3 of the things that they shot down are supposedly commercial. So yeah, we got balloons. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a balloon. All right, whatever. There are bigger stories.
This is Plausibly Live.
Well, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are, whatever you do. A lot of things happening in the world today. Most of them are far beyond our control, you might say. Perhaps it's time we took a pause and thought about life, thought about the laws of gravity, the superb owl and its nonsense, distractions, discretion, politics, and or the news. Don't touch that dial. Just try to hear me out for a little while. Well, I didn't get to touch. That doesn't make any sense. I didn't get to touch the superb owl on Monday. Thanks again to Judd for being here. That discussion left me kind of, I don't want to say shaken up, but concerned about some things. I was not aware of some things, and it was good to have him here and to enlighten me on some of those stuff, because I as I told Rod and I told you last week, I just didn't get the fentanyl thing. I just don't understand it. Well, now I understand a bit more about it, and I don't like it. It causes me grave concern that some asshat could hand my son a piece of candy laced with fentanyl. I wouldn't have my son anymore. At any rate, moving on. Thanks again to Judd for being here. I really appreciate that. But we didn't talk about the superb owl because we had bigger fish to fry, as it were. Most of the discussion about that has already been put to bed. Yes, it was a hold. No, it should not have been called in that situation. To believe, though, that the referees gave the game to Kansas City necessitates that you have to believe that Philadelphia and Jamal and Hurts, what's his first name? I forgot. Anyway, you would have to believe that they were going to score, and I don't think that that's an automatic, but be that as it may, it did not look good for the NFL. Yes, it was a hold, but no, it should not have been called. That all came out of that NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints a few years ago. Nobody talks about the fact that they shouldn't have been throwing the ball. All they talk about is the fact that the referees didn't do something right. So it's always blame somebody else. On the other hand, is it just me or did the commercials really suck this year? I mean, bad. I missed part of the game because Cammie and I went out for our Valentine's Day dinner. She was working on Valentine's, so we weren't going to be able to do that. So we went out on Sunday. And it was nice because there was nobody else out. But I didn't see most of the commercials. And then when I did get home to watch the rest of the game, I was engaged in something else. But the bottom line was I went last night, I went and watched the 10 best commercials of 2023 Superb Owl. And they sucked. Bad. I love Adam Driver. I think Adam Driver, he might be my new Kevin Costner. I don't know. But his commercial was terrible. Terrible. The Breaking Bad commercial that everybody is screeching about is the best commercial of the week. I mean, it's good if you watched Breaking Bad. If you didn't, you have no clue what's going on there. None whatsoever. And I would guess that the vast majority of the people in the country didn't watch that show. I didn't. I've never seen a minute of it. I know it from, social context and that sort of thing. But good Lord, those were some bad commercials. Commercials once at the Superb Owl were king. Remember that? Remember when commercials were the show? I mean, they really were, because the games were so bad. I say this as someone who's a lifelong fan of the Denver Broncos. And what is it? 4 of the top 10 Super Bowl blowouts are my team losing. And there was a year, I think it was the 89 season, so it would have been the 90 Super Bowl, Broncos and the 49ers. And the game was so bad that the halftime show was basically abandoned. People left, didn't watch it. But it was, the commercials back then were so good. And the one commercial I really remember would have been around 1983, thinking it was the 83 Super Bowl, might have been 84, the Super Bowl, not the season. And they had a Volkswagen commercial where the guy's racing around the track and the steam, the fog and everything, and you can barely see the car. It's kind of dark, and the car does this power slide up to the guy with the clipboard. The window rolls down real smooth. And the guy with the clipboard says, "E?" And the guy raises the eye shield off his helmet, and he says, "Ausgezeichnet." Is German for out of this world. And they were advertising the car, the Volkswagen Scirocco, which turned out to be the car that I bought because of that commercial. Anyway, commercials used to be king in this whole thing, but the games have gotten so much better because the league has done a great job with parity. I think that there is an element of officiating that keeps the games operating better and makes them more intriguing, whether it's calls being made, calls not being made. And I think it has changed the commercial function during the game. But I think the biggest factor in why the commercials suck so bad now is just simply the inundation of advertising. There is so much advertising everywhere now because of the web, because of connections, because of streaming, that we've reached a point now where we just sort of tune out ads. More or less. We either skip through them or whatever. And I don't know, when they build it up as, oh, this is going to be the commercial that you're going to want to see. Remember the 1984 Macintosh computer commercial? Why 1984 isn't going to be 1984? Remember those? We just don't get that anymore. Now what we get is, God, Adam Driver saying, Adam Driver gets it, a website that builds websites. Like, dude, I know you got paid for it, and God bless you for that, but that was a crappy commercial. It really was. But it's in the top 10, Dave. Okay. The acting commercials. They had two of those in the top 10. They had, Zoolander, and they had Steve Martin both do the same commercial for the same product with the same lines. Okay, there's two of your top 10. Whoop-de-doo. But though it doesn't mean there wasn't some controversial elements coming out of the Superb Owl. Hamlin's jacket. Darrell Hamlin wore a jacket to the Superb Owl because he did go. And, of course, this created all kinds of controversy because is that really Darrell Hamlin? He doesn't have the right tattoos or this, that, and the other. But his jacket, after spending weeks, praising Jesus for saving his life and restoring him to life and whatever, he wore a jacket that was, according to some, very disrespectful to Christianity. I thought it was childish. I thought it was silly, but I don't know if it was disrespectful or not. It's hard to describe to you. It's a jacket. It's a blue jacket with, and some of you won't remember these. Do you remember the little cutout dolls that had the folding tabs? And so they would stand up and so you could hang clothes on them and stuff like that. It had cutouts of those on the back of the jacket of Jesus and the cross and stuff like that. Was it disrespectful? Maybe. But disrespect is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? It's part of what I'm driving at today, is that what offends you might not offend me. That's your problem, not mine. And what offends me might not offend you. That's my problem, not yours. So people took to social media, including Adrian Peterson, a former NFL player, who absolutely lambasted Darrell Hamlin over this. But they did something that was kind of impressive. They actually talked to each other and worked out their differences and went on their way, shook hands and said, okay, great, move on. The same cannot be said of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had major heartache with the Jesus Gets Us ads that ran during the game. I didn't actually see one during the game. It may have been pre-game. I don't know. Maybe there was one. I missed it if there was. Again, these ads have been out there for a while. There was nothing new in this. There was nothing new or controversial. This was all just rehash of ads that have been running for a while if you haven't seen these He Gets Us ads. As a former Christian pastor, I am no longer that, I could see the controversy in these ads instantaneously. Theologically, there are some major problems with it, particularly if you come from a conservative Christian bent. If you come from a liberalized Christian bent, then you probably were fine with them. You probably didn't have any problem with it. But a more traditional reading of the gospel in the New Testament, you probably did. That said, the people behind the ads are, by their own definition, multi-denominational, and including, by the way, people who are non-believers. So they put these ads together to encourage people that Jesus gets you, which, as a Jewish person, I have some other issues with, but we'll put that aside for another day. AOC, Congresswoman AOC, took to Twitter, because that's what you do these days. You go to Twitter to complain about other people's opinions. Went off on a rant about, I don't think Jesus would have spent $20 million to normalize fascism. Well, this, of course, turned into a major Twitter battle because, again, that's what you do. You go to Twitter to express your opinion. And at the end of the day, you're not going to change her mind. She does not like, in her world, and see, this is the thing that she doesn't get. They paid $20 million to air those ads. That $20 million paid somebody's salaries, in turn turned into food that they put on their table, then donations that they made to causes that they support. She doesn't get any of that. She just thinks that, the government should be in charge of spending all money, and if it's not, then it's a problem. It was sad to watch this whole thing, because now you're using Jesus as the kickball of this whole argument. Did Jesus get AOC or not? I don't know. The whole thing was pathetic, was embarrassing. So was the Daryl Hamlin interviews and his jacket, and people were upset about all this stuff. And at the end of the day, Kansas City Chiefs still won the Superb Owl on a questionable holding call that probably didn't change anything, but it certainly made people take to social media, screeching and yelling, because that's what we do. Welcome back. This is I, Dave. This is my show, Plausibly Live, the Dave Bowman Show, on-demand internet radio. Glad you're with us today. So, I almost hesitated to get into this because, well, you'll see here in a second. Some of you will see. Some of you won't get it at all, but there you go. Balloons and UFOs. Yes. We are being distracted by balloons and UFOs. I don't think there's anybody logical that thinks otherwise. I caveated that by saying logical. I don't think that there are any logically, rationally thinking people who don't recognize this for what it is. It is a distraction from actual issues going on in both the world and in the nation. You could say, well, Dave, what about East Palestine? We're being distracted from East Palestine, Ohio. We are. We can't get good information about what's going on there at all. Is it as bad as people are saying, or is it not as bad as people are saying? We don't know. I've seen discussions, posts from people on both sides of the issues, people who say that they live there. How do I verify it? I don't know. Who say it really isn't all that bad, but then you got people who are saying it's, Chernobyl-esque. I don't have sufficient information to make a determination one way or the other. I just don't. That's a distraction. But I got plenty of information about whether or not this is a UFO or a balloon. I got people all over the world commenting about, why are you paying attention to these balloons? They're just distracting you. And I got other people telling me, Dave, it's a UFO invasion. We're at war. Did you know that as many as 6,000 children have been removed by the Russians from Ukraine, and sent to re-education camps inside of Russia? Didn't know that, did you? Wonder why. What's distracting you from that? What's distracting us from all kinds of things? I think what distracts us is the overwhelming amount of information, just like the ads have been ruined for the superb owl by the overwhelmingness of the availability of advertising. Now, all of that said, I have no responsibility for what somebody else tweets. Do you understand that? Let me say this again. I have no responsibility or even involvement in what someone else tweets, just like you have no responsibility or involvement for what I tweet or post or whatever. Chewing on me for what someone else said is useless. Me chewing on you for something someone else said is useless, because I can't say this enough. I don't care what other people say on their social media posts. I don't care. Everybody, including you, everybody says crazy shit on their accounts. Everyone says something that I disagree with, sometimes vehemently. Got into a theological argument this week because someone posted a meme. It was wonderful. Oh, it's such a good feeling. Oh, it's so heartfelt. It's so meaningful, Dave. Don't you see? And I said, yeah, I get what you're saying. The problem is that Scripture says exactly the opposite. So which do we believe, the Scriptures or the meme? And I got told that I was being inconsiderate and rude, and there you go. And that's why I don't comment usually on crazy shit that people say on their own accounts, even you. What it's worth, we are being distracted. And if the post says, hey, we're being distracted, that's the primary focus of it. We're being distracted. Now, what one person believes is the cause of the distraction and what the actual distraction is completely up to them. I have no way of controlling that. I have no way of saying that. Yes, we are being distracted every single day. We're also human beings. We like to talk about things. Water cooler talk, talk radio, podcasts, you name it. We like to talk about it. I like to talk about it. In some ways, as the poet Ovid, to paraphrase the poet Ovid said, there's something to learn in everything. Yes, it's a distraction. The UFOs and the balloons are a distraction. We get it. But there's something to learn in that, isn't there? Isn't there some way to look at that and go, this is typical, this is what we can learn about how the government tries to distract us from bigger stories? Can we not look at East Palestine and say, whether it really is that bad, whether it really is Chernobyl-esque or not, is really not the relevant issue. The relevant issue is, why aren't we talking about it? It's a distraction. We're human beings. We like to talk about things. We like to say things. And perhaps, unfortunately, social media has given us the ability to say whatever the hell we want, whenever the hell we want to say it. However we want to say it. It's like the First Amendment on steroids. You can do or say whatever you want. And every single person on social media, I don't care who you are, has said batshit crazy stuff on social media. Every single person. And I personally have no responsibility for that, because I didn't put it in your head. I didn't mentally control you and say, here, write this. controversial thing on social media, nor did I tell you to tag me in it. For the record, if you tag me on something on Facebook, it's not going to show up on my feed because I control that. I have a limiting thing on there in my settings that says I have to approve it first. So you tagging me doesn't do anything. Not on Facebook. On Twitter, it's a little more complicated. But when somebody usually tags me on something on Twitter, it's either something that I want to read or something that I want to know about, or it's something that, people with beliefs that differ from mine are trying to convince me of. That doesn't mean that I agree with them because they tagged me in a tweet. Doesn't mean that I think the same way. It means they're trying to convince me that this insane idea that they have, or maybe not so insane idea, is legit. I'm not responsible for what other people tweet, nor am I responsible for your reaction to it. Tagging me in it does you no good. That should have been obvious by my ultimate response to the whole thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, look on my Twitter account. You'll see it. We're human beings. We like to talk. But one of the Chabad rabbis that I follow, on social media no less, posted this a few days ago, and it's something I personally try to take to heart. It's funny because one of the things my family complains about, which will surprise you, the listener, because you don't know me personally. Very few of you have had the opportunity to hang around with me in a very personal setting. In my private life, I'm very, very, very quiet. I try not to say anything. That's just who I am. Behind a microphone, behind a lectern, on the podium, different story. That's my professional life. But in my private life, I tend to be very, very, very quiet. And it drives my wife nuts. She's always talking about, why don't you ever say anything? This rabbi said this a few days ago, and it's something that I really take to heart. It's something that I believe, and I believed for a long time, but I never found anybody that put it quite this way. Don't say everything that comes to your mind. Be careful and considerate of what you say. Not an easy goal. It ain't easy. Believe me, it ain't easy. Especially in a world with social media, especially in a world where people say things to get a reaction from you. It's not easy. But it is, in fact, a worthwhile goal. Don't say everything that comes to your mind, even on social media. Be careful and considerate of what you say, because you don't know everything that's going on. You have no clue. You think you do, but you don't. And at the end of the day, well, don't say everything that comes to mind, Dave. Be careful and considerate of what you say. It ain't easy, but it's a worthy goal. Take the time right now. Tell the people that matter in your life you love them very much. You'd miss them if they weren't there, so don't pass up those opportunities. You don't want to have that regret. Plausibly Live, I'm Dave Bowman. We will see you next time for the Dave Bowman Show.